معرفة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today, let us discuss about Sukuk. What is Sukuk all about? What it means? What is the literal meaning of it? And from which language is this word derived? The word Sukuk is basically a plural word. The singular word of Sukuk is sak, and this is derived from Arabic. And sak means a certificate. Now let us try to understand that Sukuk is not a recent phenomena in the Islamic world. The earlier traces of Sukuk can be found as early as in the 1st century Hijri. So in the 1st century Hijri, what is Hijri? Hijri is basically an Islamic calendar which starts from the day Prophet Muhammad has migrated from Mecca to Medina. So from then on, this calendar starts. So even in the 1st century Hijri, we can find references to Sukuk. Then going forward, there are very clear references to the word Sukuk in the book written by Imam Malik in his book Muwatta. We all know the prominence of Imam Malik, how prominent a scholar he was, and he has very clear references to Sukuk in his book Muwatta. Then in the 7th century Hijri, under the Umayyad dynasty, we can find that the government used to issue Sukuk to soldiers and public servants. To soldiers and public servants. And this Sukuk were called as Sukuk al-Badal. Sukuk al-Badal. Basically, these were commodity coupons. So what we are saying is that the Sukuk, when it was issued to soldiers and public servants, these soldiers and public servants who had been given the Sukuk al-Badal had the opportunity either to redeem on maturity date against a fixed amount of food commodity or sell to others before the maturity date. So what we can understand from the historical background of Sukuk is that Sukuk is not a recent phenomena. It is as old as Islam itself. So to conclude, what we can understand is that the Sukuk is not a recent phenomena. The historical evidence of Sukuk can be found in the Islamic history as early as in the 1st century. Then we can find it in the book written by the prominent scholar Imam Malik. In the 7th century Hijri, the Umayyad dynasty were in fact actually issuing Sukuk to their soldiers and public servants. So Sukuk is a very recognized concept in Islamic history. Now let us continue our discussion on Sukuk. Now it is important to understand that of course we have discussed the historical references to Sukuk. But in the modern revival or in the modern resurgence of Sukuk, there are certain institutions which have played a very important role. And the first amongst them is Islamic Fiqh Academy. Islamic Fiqh Academy. Basically, this is an organization which comprises of prominent scholars from across different countries who discuss issues related to Islamic law and pass resolutions. And one important resolution which was passed by Islamic Fiqh Academy, and the number of the resolution was resolution number 33/4. In this resolution, the Islamic Fiqh Academy had discussed about Sukuk. And the concept of Sukuk was adopted, and this was precisely in February 1988. So what we understand is that when such an important body had recognized the concept and defined what a Sukuk is all about, then it became an acceptable instrument across the industry. Now let us discuss about IOFI, Accounting and Auditing Organization of Islamic Financial Institutions. IOFI, which is a very prominent body, had provided a definition for Sukuk. And according to IOFI, Sukuk are certificates of equal value representing undivided share in the ownership of tangible assets, usufruct or services. So what it means is that these are certificates which are backed either by tangible assets or by usufruct or by services. And going forward, we will understand what exactly we mean by tangible, by usufruct, okay, what we mean by services. But here what precisely I wanted to explain to you was that when these two important bodies had recognized the concept of Sukuk and had defined Sukuk, it became very helpful for the industry to develop structures based on these definitions and at the same time get acceptability from the Sharia scholars. Let us now discuss about Sukuk categories. Broadly, Sukuk can be categorized into two. One is the asset-based Sukuk and the other is the debt-based Sukuk. What do we mean by an asset-based Sukuk is that in an asset-based Sukuk, the underlying asset of the Sukuk is present during the whole term of the Sukuk. An easy example of this would be an Ijara Sukuk, meaning to say as Ijara meaning lease. So in an Ijara Sukuk, if the SPV has purchased certain real estate from the proceeds obtained from the investors and then leased it to the obligor, so until the term of the Sukuk is finished, the asset would be in existence in the structure. What do we mean by a debt-based Sukuk is that, for example, in a Murabaha Sukuk, if the SPV has purchased certain commodities and then sold that asset to the obligor, then it's not necessary that the obligor keeps that asset in possession. The obligor can always sell it to a third party and obtain cash, and the return to the investors would be given from the obligation which is created through a murabaha between the SPV and the obligor. But in an asset-based Sukuk, the return to the investors would be linked to the performance of the underlying asset of the Sukuk. So this is the main difference between an asset-based Sukuk and a debt-based Sukuk. So what are the examples of an asset-based Sukuk are? For example, the Ijara Sukuk, the Mudaraba Sukuk, and also, for example, the Musharaka Sukuk. Okay, now here what are the examples of debt-based Sukuk? For example, we have Murabaha Sukuk, we have Salam Sukuk, we have Istisna Sukuk,